So the crypto market just had its daily candle close, and that was at 8 o'clock Eastern time. And we can see some things going on here with the total crypto market cap. And I wanted it to hold levels, right? I was talking about that yesterday. I was pointing out the levels, if you remember. If not, you can go back and watch the video. But essentially, it's losing those support levels right now on a lot of charts. And we're going to take a look. This is why we do daily recaps for you guys so you can understand what's really going on. So total did lose that conversion line. I wanted it to hold, right? I was talking about that 2 trillion. Did not hold, right? It closed below. It even wicked down below to that line, which is positive, right? So I'm going to consider my GAN arc as a support, right? So any time price goes back down to maybe 1.97 trillion, I'm going to consider that support until it breaks. So this is the daily level I want you guys to watch for the total crypto cap. And now resistance is going to be 2.017 trillion. It's that simple, right? So that means we're going to take a look at the others chart next. And the others chart is not the same situation, right? So the total did lose that support, but the others did not. It closed above the conversion line still at 1.8694 trillion. That's a good sign. And the daily candle just opened above that conversion line too, which is also a bullish scenario. That means 186.945, that's support right now, right? But if tomorrow closes below it, guess what? It's going to be that arc below around 176 billion. That's what it's going to be. And resistance is the same. It's the same exact as yesterday. It's 200.94 billion. That's your resistance level, which coincides with the top of the arc as well. So these are my 2 support levels, but this had a better weekly or better daily close than the total crypto market cap. So possibly some altcoins can hang on a little bit. So let's check out everything else. And that leads me to Bitcoin. And Bitcoin right here, guess what? Same thing as total. It did not hold that conversion line. It closed the day below, right? What does that really mean to me? Well, it really means to me that price kind of wants to go lower. But what about weekly support? Can we count on that weekly support? Because that green arc sits all the way down there at 51,000. Is that where price really is going to go? Well, let's go to a higher time frame to see and find out. Well, that weekly chart doesn't really tell us anything, right? That weekly chart says that all you see above is resistance still. So that means I'm going to go to the monthly chart and see what's going on. And yeah, the monthly chart is telling the bigger story that 55,711, that's kind of the target, right? That's the support I really want candles to hold, especially this monthly candle. I want to see it hold that 55,711 right there. That's the number. I think that's the number you guys can use for the rest of the month unless it breaks, right? If it does break, then we'll have to go back to the arc down here to the 50,000. But like I said, the whole week I've been saying that Bitcoin's under resistance. It's not going to break out. And sure enough, if it can't break resistance, it's going to go lower. That's what I always say. And that's exactly what happened with Bitcoin right now. And next is Ethereum. And Ethereum is one of those altcoins that held its support, right? The conversion line's there at 2550. It held that support. And now that's my line in the sand. I want to see daily candles continue to close above that starting tomorrow. And tomorrow, if it closes below it, then guess what? That puts the angle right there back on the table. See, you already saw it hit once, but it's possible to hit there again. So if it does wick below and closes back above, that's fine, right? Because you saw that here. All that matters is daily candle closes. The wicks do not really matter. So support is 2550. Resistance is 2837. Remember those numbers? That's where I want things to close tomorrow for a continuation higher. If not, this angle here around 2280 becomes your next support level. And next is TON, T-O-N, right? That actually had a pretty decent candle close as well. It closed above the conversion, it closed above the baseline, and the only thing it didn't close above was that angle again, which it did do it the day before. So I was kind of excited, but this new candle closed below. So what that means to me now is that that puts the 632 level, the conversion line, as support. That's your support level going into tomorrow. I want that to hold. And your resistance now becomes right up here around 680, 685, that zone. Support, resistance, it's just that simple. And next is Dogecoin. Dogecoin, another one of those that closed below the daily conversion line. So that means 10227 is resistance. It's no longer support. It closed the day below. And does that mean support is going to be down here at 0.095? Let's go to the higher time frames to see if we can find more support. And sure enough, right down here is going to be your support. This bottom of the cloud for the weekly chart, 0.083, right? That's going to be your first real level of support, right? But we can go back to that daily chart right here, and you can just draw a little box here to see that, yeah, this is going to be support before it goes down to those levels. So I agree. If a candle did come back here, it could bounce up and continue higher, and that zone is around 0.095, right? And even if I extend that candle all the way, or that line all the way to the left, you can see it was kind of like a resistance zone in the past as well. So this could be a good demand zone, right? It's not guaranteed to go back down to the 8s at all. So I think your first level of support is 0.095. And if that breaks, then it'll get to the 8s, to that bottom of that cloud on the weekly chart. So that is your support right now. And this is going to be your resistance as of tomorrow, 10227, and so on. So I'm not going to get excited about it until it can break back above that conversion line. And so far, it's not looking too great. Possibly just wants to backtest the zone first before it can break higher. And next, that leads me to ADA. And ADA is another one of those that did not hold support, right? You're seeing some trends here that some coins are above, some are below. And so far, I think the majority are below. So this is one example of losing support. And now where's the next level? That is right here at my orange arc right here on Cardano, and that is at 31 cents, which coincides with these previous daily candles here as well, right? You can see that also if you draw a line or a box straight across from these levels, you can see that there is some resistance in this zone before. So previous resistance possibly turned support, right? That's a good indicator that things can stop at 31 cents and continue higher. So that's support 31 and resistance is 33.77. And next is ALGO and it's another one. It broke support, right? It broke support. So this is now resistance. 0.1159 is resistance. If it can close back above tomorrow, great. Then the next resistance will be up here. But if not, then guess what? It's going to drift lower to find new support. And right now, this new support could be in this box right here because there's a lot of demand in these candles here. If I go to the left, is there any support though? Let's see, right? We can drag it all the way across. Yeah, there's some right there, right? The candles did stop there as some kind of resistance before it broke out, right? Even if you drag it a little bit more, there was some support here. I'll just zoom in for you. There was some support here. There was some support here. And you drag it a little more, there was support here. So you can see that previous support levels, and this was a resistance, could have flipped back to a support. Therefore, this is my first target, 1107, right? That is basically 11 cents. That zone is my new support zone. And now 1159, that is my resistance zone. So I believe if it can't break above, it's going to drift lower to test that support. And next is XRP, and XRP did the same thing, right? It closed the day below support. I wanted to see it hold it, but it did not. And guess what that means? Support now is 54467 right there, which coincides with the top of the cloud and a successful backtest of that cloud and the baseline which is not a bearish thing. This is fine, right? It just needs more time. That's all this daily chart is telling you, that it needs more time. So that is support. Now 59,377 is going to be resistance. That's your range for tomorrow and possibly the days to come as well. So going to watch this really closely, and most likely I think price is going to drift lower now. So do not expect it to go up tomorrow or maybe even the days after that as well. So there's your support, there's your resistance. And next is XLM, and this one is basically at support. So it already kind of closed below the conversion line 2 days ago, kind of like right on it, but then that's guaranteed to open the candle below it. Sure enough, it did. So this was expected. I think I even talked about it yesterday, how that was support. 0.09488 or 0.095, that is support. And sure enough, support hit perfectly, right? And that is still your support level. And if that breaks, guess what? That's right. 0.0912845, that is your next support level right there. But so far this is holding, so we're going to pay attention to this going into tomorrow's close. And that means resistance above is still around 10 cents right above. And next on the daily chart is Solana, and this has already been under all support, right? It started 2 days ago, so this is no surprise. So that means we got to go to higher time frames, and the higher time frame that I'm going to go to is the weekly chart, but there still is no support below it unless you want to consider this angle right here, 110.52. If you want to consider that support, that's great. But you can put on the SMA here, and that also coincides with it, right? So that is a real big possibility for price to maybe come down there and test that 110 zone, right? What about if I just put on the monthly chart? Will it get to that 110? This is the one way to find out. And so far, the monthly chart says no, 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 right? It's not going to get there. And the reason why, because the conversion line sits in the way right there at 134.39, right? And it already got down to 110, right? It already wicked down through it. If you look right here, it already wicked down through the 110 level, so it doesn't necessarily need to go back there, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to say 134 is a support. This is the level we're going to watch for the rest of the month for Solana, 134.39. That's not going to change at all. But the resistance can change, and the resistance is going to start by looking at the daily chart here, and that resistance starts at 149, right? It starts right there at the 200-day moving average, 149, and that 134 zone, that's going to be your first level of support down here. And next is a chain link, and this one did not lose its support, so I'm kind of happy about that. And guess what? That means support still is the same as yesterday. It's 10.09, right? Nothing has changed at all. And what does that mean for resistance? You got it. It's 11.48, right up there. But I want you to guys remember that the Fibonacci levels here, the 382, that's really going to be my target for a strong resistance, 11.87. And again, if that baseline or that conversion line ever did break, then that 236 around 834 becomes possible. So we're just going to put it out there and just see if this holds. If it holds, great, then it can continue higher. But if not, it can come back to this demand zone here. And if I draw a box right here, is that going to prove any kind of support looking in the past? Let's find out. Let's just drag it all the way across. Kind of a little wicks there and not too much. We'll drag it a little further. Yeah. So there we go. You can see that it does, look at previous resistance, previous resistance, previous resistance. So this is a good indicator that maybe it won't go back down to the 236. Maybe this green box is all that it wants to go. And judging by the past resistance levels right here, a previous resistance goes up, flips it to support. So this is a bullish scenario in the high time frame, but that leads, if this conversion line breaks, that means maybe the bottom around 945 will become support. Maybe 945 all the way up to possibly 10, right? So it's pretty close to that support range now, so I'm hoping that holds. If not, then guaranteed to go back to 835 and test that Fibonacci level. So those are your support levels right here. And this is your current resistance level right there at 1163. And next is near protocol, and near still closed above the conversion line. Now, I know I talked about this 404 level yesterday. I talked about everything yesterday, and I wanted it to hold above, but it did not, right? It did not hold above. It did close a little bit below, so that means 394 is your support level. And we're going to watch that until it breaks, if it breaks, right? If it doesn't break, then great. Then that'll be support. But right now, resistance is 404. Look at this tight range right here. Super tight range. One of these is going to break. Which one is it going to be? So if this 394 breaks as support, what's going to happen next? Well, let's draw my little box, right? Let's see. Let's pull it to the left. Yeah, there was some support there. We'll pull it to the left even more. Yep, some support there. Some resistance there, I should say. Let me just take off all these indicators so you can see things clearer. So we'll pull it to the left. Oh, look at that. It was some resistance right there. Pull it a little more. Okay. Some support, a little resistance, some support there, right? You can pull it all the way to the left. Some resistance there, right? Some support there. So again, this is a pretty good demand zone when you look at just that area where price held, right? So that kind of means that if that conversion line does break, and where is that conversion line? Well, it sits right there at 394, right? It sits right there at 394. So that's going to be the line in the sand. If not, it might go back down to the 360s or even 350s. So that's what I'm watching right there. And I really want price to start to close back above that 404 in order to get back to the 476 up above. And that leads me to Fetch AI, and guess what? It also closed below that conversion line. That is not bullish, right? That means it's back to a range. And this range, guess what? We can do a box, right? Draw the box across, go all the way across. Is there any demand in that area? Yeah, there is. Like we can even go a little bit lower because of this wick down here. And look at that. It's a previous high before it broke out, right? That's all it is. A previous resistance flipped to a support. That's all it is so far. So this is still very bullish, right? Still very bullish in the high time frame, but in the daily chart, it's not so bullish simply because it's losing momentum still. And that means maybe the bottom of this of that wick could be support around 70 cents. And if that gets lost, it's possible to go back to the arc there into the 60s, maybe 64. So this whole range right here is support from the 70s to the 80s, and then resistance is going to be now 86.5. And it's going to be resistance until it can break a daily candle close back above it. And next is Bit Tensor Tau. Okay. Still closed above the baseline, still closed above my blue horizontal line. And that is support. So it's really right at support. It's at 268.90, support's around 264. And that means that resistance is simple. It's just 281. So no switching of time frames. You can only look at this. That's what I'm looking at for tomorrow. And I want those levels to hold in order to try to break that resistance above. Okay, HBAR. Still below the conversion line. Nothing changed. But let's do our box today, and we'll see that that's the demand zone. So the bottom of that box, we can pull it a little bit down lower, down to these wicks down here. And maybe that will be around 0.05, 5 cents exactly, right? That'll be your bottom of support zone. And we'll pull it across just to see if there's any demand over there. And I can just get rid of that Ichimoku. And this is perfect, right? Look at that. It was resistance here. It was support here, right? It was resistance here, support here, resistance here, support here. Guess what? This zone is super, super important. Therefore, it's valid. Therefore, it is support. And it's going to be support until this breaks. And if that does break, then that puts this 0.045 on the table. and possibly even below that blue angle there at 4 cents exactly. But so far, this is a big demand zone and it is your support. And putting back on the Ichimoku, you can see clearly that your resistance is going to be 0.0549. And these are the only levels you need to pay attention to going in tomorrow, because one of these has to break before price will change. If none of these break, it's just going to be stuck in this range. And next is Flare. So Flare had like that nice wick a couple days ago, but doesn't matter. It just was wick right through resistance, still resistance. That means this is support, right? Right here is support. And essentially, can you draw a line across? We can probably try. Let's do it. We've been doing it for everything else. So there's a lot of candles in this area as a support zone. Can pull it down just a little bit lower, right? So we'll just go all the way across again just to see. Well, yeah, that was a resistance right there. You can see that clearly was a resistance. And we'll pull it across even more. Was a resistance there too. And again, I'll just take off the Ichimoku so you can see it clear. And yeah, this is perfect, right? Resistance, 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 even some resistance. It took off and launched, right? What did price just do after that? Backtest resistance. So a previous resistance, flip to support. That's all it is so far. This is how you think of it on the high time frame. So this high time frame, still very bullish, right? But on the low time frame here, this is, there's your SMA is way up there. Then you got your Ichimoku. On the low time frame, it's in a downtrend, right? But all it did is go back to a previous resistance, flip to support so far. So can you be bearish on this coin? No, you cannot, unless this breaks. But even still, and there's an angle below to save it around 0.01246. So high time frame, still bullish. This is your demand zone from 0.014 all the way up to 0.015. Resistance is there, 0.01647, and these are the only numbers you need to pay attention to, because if it can't break either one of them, then what's it going to do? It's going to be stuck in a range. And that leads me to AZERO. And AZERO is right here under resistance. That 50-day moving average is resistance. You don't need any other chart for this. This is all you need to see. 46.57, that is your resistance. The baseline down there at 45, that is your support, right? You don't need to see anything else. One of these two has to break before price will do anything. So we'll wait for a daily candle close tomorrow to see if these levels can hold here and to see if this can break above. And next is TRIAS, and TRIAS is still below the conversion line. So what does that mean? Well, that kind of means that it could go back down to that blue angle, but since I'm in a box drawing day today, I'm just going to keep on doing that. And if you see me do this a lot, then what does that really mean for everything? That there's a pattern. There's a pattern with the altcoins that are happening right now. So let me just take off these so you can see it more clearly. Let's pull it to the left. That's a support. We'll pull it to the left. Okay, that was some support down there. We can even pull it a little bit lower, right? Because of these wicks down here. And yeah, that's a support. Okay, let's continue. Pull it to the left. There was nothing here, so uh-oh. But we can pull it left some more, nothing there. Pull it left more. Okay, that was a support. Kind of a resistance up there. And pull it all the way. So we'll zoom in a little bit. Consider this a resistance, right? Because all it was doing a higher or a lower high from here. It just got above that resistance level a little bit, but it still was resistance. This was a support, right? This green box was a support. Was a support here too. Support, 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 and a resistance. So what is this telling us in the high time frame? Well, let's go back to our present day. See, we can see all that demand there. and we can see it just launch above support, right? And since it was a previous resistance back here, all it really is doing was a previous resistance after a breakout. It's doing a successful backtest. That's all it's doing, right? That's the only way you can think of it. And actually, you can extend this down, this box even further, right? You can extend it down here and just continue up. And when you extend it down where these wicks are, then it even covers this as resistance too, right? And even if you go a little bit more to the bottom of those wicks, guess what? This becomes resistance too. So it's all it is a previous resistance breakout, successful backtest still. So this is a pattern that you're seeing in many, many, many altcoins right now. Okay, and next we have ICP. And ICP is right here on my GAN. You can see it broke that angle as support. Is it going to drift down to this angle below around $5? Well, let's put on our indicators first. Not that one, this one. Yeah, so it's still below the conversion line there. It's below that by 726, and it's basically in a range, right? It's below all the things, so that's resistance. 726 is resistance. But you know what I'm going to do next, don't you? I'm going to draw a box, right? I'm going to draw it like that and include some of those wicks. And what am I going to do? I'm going to pull it to the left, right? Even though my GAN box starts right there, that's not where support and resistance starts. Get low, look at this. It was resistance, right? Oh, look at that, resistance. Even candles didn't close above it. Look at that, resistance. And support, support, and support. So it was a previous support, flipped to resistance, a breakout from that resistance with a successful back test. This is a pattern, guys, for the altcoins. Very good pattern. And as long as this pattern holds, this is very bullish for the future, right? I don't know if you realize this. This is super bullish for the future. But if things break down a little bit more, it's just going to be a lot more time for things to get bullish. So this really needs to hold. So that's your support zone, right? From $6 up to maybe, yeah, around down here, maybe 685. That's your support. And again, your resistance is that Ichimoku at 726. And next is render. And render is, guess what? It's underneath the conversion line, and that now puts 470 at resistance. And 470 at resistance, what does that mean? Well, that means that it is resistance, right? That's all it is. And where is support? It can be this arc still right there at $3.99 or $4. I think that's a good place for support. But I think you know what I'm going to do next anyways, just to show you the pattern, what's going on, right? I'm going to draw a box. I'm going to pull my box. There. Okay, support, right? I can even draw, bring it a little bit higher simply because this whole zone, right? This whole zone is an area. So this is resistance, resistance. Pull it more and more and more. So yeah, that was a resistance there. And then it was a resistance there. Then it was a support, then a resistance. And what do you see price do? It broke out all the way to the blue level with a successful backtest, right? That's it. This is a pattern, right? So nothing really to worry about. So that brings your support right there. It puts your support right there around maybe $4. And it makes your resistance right there around 470, right? That is your resistance. So that's the range. And nothing's going to happen until either one of those break. Ooh. And next is AVAX. And AVAX, we have something similar where it's below the conversion line now. So that makes 2116 resistance. And where is support? You know what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to put this here. I'm going to bring it up to that conversion line. Why not? Pull it across. Yeah, that was a support zone. Let's just take off our Ichimoku, see things clearer. Gonna pull it across. Wow. Resistance. 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 Support. Resistance. Resistance. Right? So, resistance, 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 resistance. And breakout of that resistance, backtest of support, breakout, and all it's doing is backtesting this previous very big resistance zone for AVAX. So will it get down to this arc? Probably not, right? I think this wick was the low. This is a very big demand zone, as you can see. Previous resistance, flip to support. I always talk about this on X, and this is exactly what it's doing on the very high time frame. The only thing that people see now, though, is on the daily chart that I have pulled up right now, it's bearish, right? The daily chart is bearish. Everything is 100% bearish. It's below all indicators, but it's in this demand zone, and I want you guys to focus on these demand zones right now because they are important, and if they hold, that's going to be really, really bullish. And next is PEPE, and PEPE right here is essentially same situation, right? I don't even need to say these long numbers here. You can see that that's resistance right there with the conversion line. But let me do the same thing just for fun so you can see. Sorry, this is a longer video today, but I want you guys to really understand what's really happening here, right? And maybe even go a little bit lower with that wick. Why not? But we pull it to the left. Pull it to the left. Look at that. Resistance. Resistance. Support. Resistance. Right? There's nothing else there. It doesn't really matter. But you get the picture. Resistance. Resistance. Breakout. Backtest of that previous resistance. Now it's flipped to support. Right? So this is your demand zone, this is your buy zone, this is your support zone. This is all that you need to know from down to the bottom here, all the way up to the top here. That is your support zone right here. And then you know your resistance by putting on that conversion line right there. And that is the 0.0000, like the 5 zeros and 809. That's your resistance to look for. And nothing again is going to happen until either one of those break. And next is SHIB. It is the same thing. It's underneath the conversion line, but can we see something similar? I don't know. I haven't even pulled a box on this one before, but I'm just going to look. We'll see, right? We'll see what happens when I pull it to the left. Okay, nothing there, nothing there. But if I did include this wick down here, possibly that's a resistance, right? Pull it across. We'll get rid of my Ichimoku, see it a little more clearly. Pull it across, yeah, resistance there, even resistance on the top here, of the top side of that box. Resistance up there, and kind of nothing right there. And in the very beginning, it was resistance, right? So a lot of resistance zones. So what do you see? It's a previous resistance zone, big zone, and flip to support, right? That's all it is. Same thing. Just a little bit wider. That's all it is. A little bit wider. I mean, you could even drag it down a little bit more to include all of that. And then there you have even more resistance hitting there. Resistance, resistance, right? So essentially, that's all it is, right? A previous resistance, breakout, backtest of that zone. So it's a resistance trying to flip it to support, right? Again and again, I keep on repeating myself, but I want you to see the pattern that's going on with the altcoins right now. And this is going to be your resistance, or yeah, your current resistance, because the daily chart is in a downtrend. So that's 0.00001366 resistance, and this whole zone down here is your demand zone. I believe that angle below will be pretty solid support if it ever got back down there. But these candles right here could be pretty good support because the bodies of the candle, there's a lot of them in that zone. So just going to pay attention to that. But nothing is going to happen until either one of these zones break, and then we'll see what happens. And next is WIF, and WIF is the same situation, right? Width is right there, and support is this blue angle, right? And resistance is that blue angle sits at 141, and the 169.2, that is resistance. So this is the range, and there you can't really pull a line across because it's kind of a new coin, right? It started back in March 2024, but what you can see though is if you just pull a box from this support right here, it's still in that support zone, right? These right here, it's still kind of in that support zone right here. So it's still support, but this one doesn't really work all the way back because it doesn't have that data. But I want you to just rely on this GAN right here, and this is going to be your support, like 140. That is the target. I want it to hold candles above that, and if it doesn't, it could come back down to the orange angle there. But this is your range from the orange angle up here. But current support sits at 140, and current resistance sits at 169 going into tomorrow. And next is the DAG, right? Okay, so here's DAG. Yesterday it was above the conversion line, but guess what happened? It could not close above it. I did my video yesterday and I showed you it could come up here, but no, like there was no momentum. It just closed the daily candle below that conversion line, so it's still resistance. 0.023. I think yesterday I said 23 cents or something, but I meant 0.023, 23 cents, right? That is essentially your resistance, and your angle down here, that's your support. And then 20, currently it's at 206, maybe 0205, 0206. That is your support, and your resistance is still 0.023. And what I want to show is, let's go here. Let's pull that box just for fun on DAG right here. We'll make it all the way up there to that, and we'll take off the Ichimoku just to see. Pull it across. So if I increased it a little bit, you can see it's a previous support flipping to resistance now. That's not a good thing though, is it? That's not good at all. So that was a support zone, but as you can see, recently it broke below it. So now it's a resistance zone, right? It can't break above this 0.0235, right? It can't break above it, so that's now resistance. So this is a little bit different, right? But let's continue to the left. Okay. Resistance, 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 support, support, resistance. So it's in the category, in my opinion, that we're not going to count this. Simply because you can see resistance, 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 breakout. This never really even got back down on that zone, so it had to go down a little bit further, right? So it's a breakout and a backtest of a previous resistance zone. So that means a breakout flipping a resistance zone into a support. That's bullish, right? It's bullish for the future. So we're not going to count this as totally bearish yet, because when you look farther to the left and you zoom in here, you can see how big of a resistance zone this has been. And now you had a breakout, and now technically this is the first time it's ever really backtested that zone. This is not really a backtest of that zone because it didn't really get down in it. It just touched the top of it. So all it is a breakout of a resistance, trying to flip it to support, just like everything else, right? And you got confluence of that angle there too. So that's your resistance, or your support zone. Your support zone's right there at 0.0205, and your resistance is at 0.023. And lastly, ADS on the daily chart. So on the daily chart, it broke above, right? It broke above the 100. And when you put on the Ichimoku 2, you can see that the reason why it got stopped out is because the top of the cloud. So that's your resistance, 0.1214. That's the current price, sorry. And the resistance is at 0.1287. That's your resistance. And your support is 0.1157. And you already saw it kind of backtested yesterday, right? And now that's your support. So this is your tight range, tight range. And this coin is not too old either, but let's just pull a box just to see what really happened here around that zone for the bottom, right? So you can see this is kind of similar how it kept on breaking lower lows, right? but it ended up being kind of like a V bottom. So that's possible for DAG to do the same thing eventually. I don't know, but we'll see. Yeah, so this is kind of a resistance zone, right? It could not break above that zone. And we go more to the left here, more to the left. Yeah, so you see it right here. Resistance, still all these candles are in resistance, 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 and this is kind of like a support zone right here. And this was the last time it was support. Back here in May 2023, the last time it was at support. That's not true, actually. Let me continue. I forgot to go left more. So yeah, support, but yeah, that was the last time it was support, right? So support, support. The last time it was support, then it broke it and flipped that zone to resistance. It did kind of break above a little bit there, but that was just a fake out. So all of this was previous support, flipping it to resistance, and now it was a successful backtest of that resistance zone. So the moral of the story, guys, that even though price is below a lot of indicators, you cannot always rely on all those indicators all the time. You can rely on the combination of GAN, and you can rely on this market symmetry here. And this market symmetry, I believe, is telling kind of the true story right now. And you can see that it's in a big demand zone right now, the big demand zone. And lots of coins, they were previous resistances, flipping them to support, and it's so far just a successful backtest of that zone.